Welcome to Adventures with Reid and Tiff. We're going to talk about our recently completed O-Circuit trip in Torres Del Paine National Park in Chile. Before getting there, we had a journey on itself to get from Toronto, Canada to Porto Natales, Chile. That included a number of flights and stopping over in Santiago, but we eventually made it there and were able to check into our hostel for the night. We stayed at Hostel Baquedano in Porto Natales, which was a great spot to start and end the trip. After eating breakfast and packing our bagged lunch in our packs, we set off to the Porto Natales bus station that was close by. It was a little bit of chaos given that there were so many buses that were leaving at pretty much the same time. So if you have a choice, I would suggest trying to get as early as the time as possible. We saw a bunch of different buses there, and ours was closer to the end. Once we arrived at the Laguna Amarga entrance of Torres Del Paine National Park, they quickly checked our tickets on the bus and then rushed us to the shuttle bus area as we were one of the last buses to arrive, telling us that we needed to get on the shuttle bus because there weren't many left for the morning. You could feel the excitement on the shuttle bus, and we were just happy to finally be there and start our hike. The view of the towers welcomed us when we started, and we set off for our hike from the Welcome Center to Torres campground. This was a great way to finish 2024. I want to pause for a moment right near the beginning of this video to talk about the O-Circuit. It is 132 kilometers that can be done over 7, 8, 9, 10 days, depending on how you want to schedule it. We did the 8-day circuit, which seemed to be the most common. It was challenging. It was hard. There were certain days that we struggled more than others, but overall it was amazing. So the rest of the video is probably going to sound very optimistic and talk and show a lot of great views. And it was all of those things, but I wanted to make sure to put this in here to also say that it was difficult. Everyone had struggles. Definitely the people that were on the O-Circuit tended to be in fairly good physical shape. But even at that, all of us struggled on certain days, certain ways. And it also depends on what you're used to. For us in Toronto, we don't have as much elevation gain and loss. So those days tended to be harder on us, whereas other days seem to go by like a breeze. But when I talk about easier or harder, that is my personal feeling compared to other days. It's not saying that one day was actually easy. Every day was difficult. When you're walking with a pack, it's never going to be super easy. Day one depends on how you schedule your O-Circuit. Some people started with the towers as their first days. Other people who do the O-Circuit in 7 days have to hike from the Welcome Center to Dixon in their first day, which would be our day 1 and 2. For the 8-day O-Circuit, we went from the Welcome Center to Saran, and that was a beautiful hike. We got to see fields full of flowers, grazing horses, our real first exposure to the beautiful Patagonia skyline. Saran is a camping-only campsite. They have raised tents for anyone that does the pre-set up tents like we did, or you can use your own tent. We decided to go ahead with the meal plan for our food during the trek. I'll do another video that focuses on the food, but for the first night at Saran, we got completely spoiled. It was New Year's Eve, and they wanted to celebrate that with a bash and a feast, and it was fantastic. Although we did not make it anywhere close to midnight because we had been traveling so much, and we hit the soft beds in the tent and knocked out. The next morning, the 6 of us enjoyed breakfast and fueled up for the day ahead. We left Saran and made our way towards Dixon, where we would be staying at the Refugio for the next night. The hike from Saran to Dixon was beautiful. We went through rolling hills and plains and got to see some beautiful lakes as well as snow-capped peaks, and overall had a fairly easy day to get us over to Dixon compared to other days to come. The views from the Refugio and campsite were amazing, and we also had horses there that are used to transport things from Dixon to Los Perros, which was the next campsite. With another successful day done, we enjoyed a drink and our dinner in preparation for the next day. The next day started with a climb almost immediately. It doesn't show up very well in the video, but it was certainly a way to tire us out or wake us up first thing in the morning. After a big climb on this trail, you get rewarded for some amazing views, and this viewpoint was no different. Since the Los Perros campsite is supplied by horses from Dixon, we also shared the path with horses taking supplies to the next campsite today. The hike ended with a beautiful view of a glacier going into a glacial lake and us hiking over glacial till to Los Perros campsite. It was very windy, but luckily the campsite itself is a little bit sheltered from the wind, but I can imagine it would get very windy at some points. Our home for the night was another pre-set up tent. This tent looked very sturdy and ready for very strong winds. Day 4, almost 5:30. Everybody's getting up and ready to go. Today was the John Gardner Pass day, which they kick you out of the campsite at 7 a.m. so that you get over the pass before the winds get too extreme. A lot has been talked about regarding the winds up on John Gardner Pass, but not much is talked about for the climb that you have to do immediately out of the campsite through muddy, root-filled trail to get to the open area. Came from the lake over there. Still have to go up there.
Another day of trail man.
We made it. And not even that windy today. Whoa. Look at that glacier. Wow, that's big. Once we cleared the pass, we got to see amazing views of Grey Glacier as we started to descend towards the forest. Not many signs on the path, but that's, I think, pretty accurate. Yeah, caution, risk of falling. But they smoothed out parts of this. Still some big obstacles with all the trees. The views of Grey Glacier from the top throughout the day was one of the highlights of the trip for me. Tiff going first across the suspension bridge, the first one so far. It is very bouncy. That is actually kind of freaky.
It is scary, right?
Great views, but it seems pretty dangerous because that is a long jump. There were a few more suspension bridges to finish the day. Luckily, our group was not scared of heights. Day 4 definitely lived up to the hype as being one of the hardest days on the O circuit. We enjoyed a restful night in the Refugio. The next morning we had the kayak excursion booked to the base of the Grey Glacier in Grey Lake. There are other excursions available, like walking on the Grey Glacier, or you can opt to just have a little bit of an easier day today. The kayaking was amazing and the weather continued to be perfect for us. Today's hike took us from Grey to Panagrande. It was an interesting day going through forest fire burn landscape and very exposed landscape, which was quite hot with the sun, but also cold when we hit windy sections. But the big difference from today is that we were now on the trail with all of the W Trek hikers and day hikers, so the trails were a lot more crowded than they had been for the previous 4 days. The Refugio room that we had at Panagrande fit 6 people, which meant that our group was all in the same one, and we took the opportunity to do a little bit of laundry. As one of the options of being the end of the W Trek, it was definitely noisier in the Refugio than other places later into the evening, so earplugs were a must. Day 6 was the exploration to the French Valley, which included going from Panagrande up to Mirador Francis, and a possibility of Botanico. Our morning hike continued to go through areas of fire damage and was quite exposed, but it was overcast, which was a nice change in pace from the previous day. At Italiano, you can drop your bag off so that you don't have to take it all the way up to the Mirador with you. For us, we put all the items that we wouldn't need into Tiff's backpack and put a couple layers and some food into my backpack to make the hike easier for both of us. The hike was completely uphill, going around some difficult rock areas, but the path was well defined, and the whole way up we could hear the thunder of pieces of the hanging glacier falling and plummeting, and that gave us the excitement of what we were going to see when we got to the viewpoint. Every couple minutes, another piece of the glacier would break off and would avalanche down the mountain, which was really cool to watch. And so we ate lunch at the viewpoint like most other people to be able to see as many as we could. We made the hard decision as a group to not continue to Mirador Botanico because of the time of day it already was and the amount of time that we would need to get to our next campsite in Refugio. The hike down was slower than expected because there were so many people that were still making their way up to the viewpoint. By day 6, we were getting pretty tired of what was in our packed lunches, so we made our way to Campsite Francis and got some pizzas and some Cokes as a little celebration of the hard day of hiking. Unfortunately, we weren't staying at Francis, so we still had a couple hours to hike to Cuerno campsite. Along the way, there were some fantastic views and hiking, but if you are looking at scheduling your hike, maybe consider going to Francis so that you have more time to complete the hikes to the Mirador, Francis, and Botanico. We made it to Cuerno and had a pre-set up tent, again similar to the other sites, that was on a raised platform. Day 7 was a bit of a repositioning day, going from Cuerno to Central Campsite and Refugio. Overall, there was some nice scenery that we were going through, but because there was nothing major on this day, it was a little bit of a down day for the group. A small kestrel watched us as we ate, looking for some scraps, but we didn't feed it, as you're not supposed to feed the wildlife. However, it seems that it did find a couple crumbs after we left. With a relatively easy day 7, it gave us time to get to Central Campsite early and to go to the Welcome Center, eat some hot dogs and some fries and some other food, and just mentally prepare for our big day tomorrow, which is to go to the base of the towers. Day 8, 3:25 in the morning. We're starting. Well, the sun's almost up. Headlamps off. Still a long way away. We reached Chileno campsite around sunrise and continued our way up the trail. This was a very demanding trail, and although it would have been nice to get to the base of La Torres by sunrise, definitely doing this hike in daylight was safer and better for us. We made it to the towers, we got our photos, and after eating lunch, we started our way down. Was it worth it? Yeah, I agree. Our timing actually worked out perfectly. As we were getting there, the people that were up for sunrise were on their way out, and all the day trippers were nowhere to be seen yet. The trail is mostly single track between Campsite Chileno and the towers, and luckily we didn't encounter many hikers until we got down to the campsite, at which point the rest of the day was quite busy on the trails. Fortunately, below Chileno, the trails get bigger, and for the most part, we were able to continue down without getting too blocked by all of the people that were on their way up. One of the reasons for our early start was to make it back to the Welcome Center to catch the 2 o'clock shuttle and then get on an earlier bus for the 3 o'clock bus back to Porto Natales. And that way we could have a little bit more rest in our hostel, as well as get something to eat that was different than what we've been eating on the trail, and the ramen tasted amazing. And just like that, the next morning we were on a plane ready to go back home. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, and let us know if there's anything else related to Patagonia that you want us to include in future videos. This was a fantastic way to start off 2025 to hike the O Circuit with friends. So thank you to John, Haley, Johnny, Jackie, and of course Tiff for making this a memorable experience. And if you're thinking about doing this trip, I highly recommend it. One of the things that if we had unlimited travel time that I think we would have done differently is we would have completed more time in Argentina, Chile, maybe Antarctica, because for us coming from Canada, it was such a long travel down to essentially the southern tip of South America, that doing more things in that area would have been good. In terms of scheduling the trip, I found it very difficult to book everything myself, so I ended up using Flash Packers to schedule the 8-day O Circuit tour. It was a self-guided tour, and they use Vertice Travel in Porto Natales as their local travel company. So both companies would communicate by WhatsApp, by email, and I found that they served very well in their purpose, and it made it a fairly easy trip once I gave up on trying to book it myself. Hope this helps, and I hope that you have a great adventure if you're about to undertake the O Circuit. Thank you.